when people talk about health and healing and, diseases and things like that, all they think about is pharmaceuticals, the medical doctors and stuff, because that's all we've been taught. That's all we've been highly exposed to. And that's how really modern medicine, conventional medicine, Western medicine, if I can say it that way, that's really what Western medicine wants us to believe there is. Like, this is the only modality of healing.
Hello, everyone. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Dee Oye, and she is a organic pharmacist. She's known around social media with her organic pharmaceutical methods, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dee Oye. I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Annmarie, for inviting me on Scrubs Unzipped. And I'm a registered pharmacist. I've been a registered pharmacist for well over 2 decades, over 25 years to be precise. And so I'm one of those older, seasoned pharmacists. I'm also a certified diabetes manager. I'm also certified in disease prevention like hyperlipidemia and asthma. And I've worked in all aspects of pharmacy practice. Name that aspect of pharmacy practice, I've worked in it. I've worked extensively in hospital pharmacy, retail pharmacy, consulting pharmacy. I mean, just name that aspect of pharmacies. I've been there, done that. And I ventured into naturopathic medicine about 10 years ago when I began to see and experience for some of my patients the limitations of medications and limitations of conventional medicine, modern medicine as we know it. And I began to, see lots of patients experiencing severe side effects to some therapies that they were prescribed. And so that led me into digging deeper into naturopathic medicine. Originally, I'm from Nigeria in Africa. So to some extent, I wasn't completely like on naturopathic medicine, natural herbs, alternative therapy wasn't completely unknown to me, wasn't foreign to me. So that made me kind of go back to my roots, so to speak, to begin to dig deeper. And I began to question a lot of things, especially when I came face to face with a lot of these inadequacies and limitations. And so that's how I began my journey in naturopathic medicine. And being the fact that I'm also a registered pharmacist gave me an edge that a lot of people possibly wouldn't have. Like if you were to compare me with someone that's just, what you would call or consider your regular herbalist, I have an edge over that person because I also come completely experienced and knowledgeable from the conventional side. So I can literally put two and two together. I can have a prescription drug here and I can say, hey, these are the natural herbs that exert the same pharmaceutical action as this one. These are the natural herbs that have the same action as these pharmacological or pharmaceutical compounds. So that just really got me into helping my patients to begin to adopt, some of this knowledge. And look, the patients are just trying to get well. They're trying to heal. They're trying to get better. And some of them listen to me because they've known me for years. I've been their pharmacist for, over a decade, some of them. And so when I began to tell them that, look, this isn't working, it's not giving you the results you're looking for, let's do this, let's add this to that. They were very open, they listened, and then we began to see results and one after the other. And with the more results I was seeing, of course, the more encouraged I was getting to dig deeper and dive deeper, like, boom, we're doing this stuff. And here we are today. I actually am on social media now because I've had so many successes, and I decided to get on social media to begin to share some of my experiences with some of my patients, my clients, and of course to just disseminate information out there to have the general public better educated. So that's the snapshot about me.
Wow, you do a lot of great things. And I want to welcome you to the podcast. And so, going back to when you grew up in Nigeria, like I know when you're a pharmacist, you have to be um, very like a studious student, and you have to know like all of the periodic table of elements. So as a young girl, like did that attract you at an early age?
Yes, I was actually
Mhm.
completely attracted to pharmacy at a very early age. When I got into high school and I went into the lab the first time, and we had lots of experiments in the lab, I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And initially, I thought I wanted to be a chemist. I wanted to be a scientist. I just knew I needed to do something along that line. And the more I got into the sciences, biology, physics, and chemistry, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not liking this physics thingy here because physics involves a lot of math. And with chemistry, it does involve some extent of math as well, but there was a whole bunch of other aspects to chemistry, and I just totally fell in love with chemistry. So, right from that age and my experience with my initial chemistry lab classes experience was when I knew that I really had a strong liking for this subject. And also, another thing I knew clearly at that time was I did not want to be a medical doctor. One thing is very common in African families. They either wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Those were the three professions. Pick one. From my experience in the chemistry labs, back when I was in, middle school, I was actually not in high school yet. It was like the last year of middle school going into high school. And I was like, no, I do not want to be a doctor because I figured, biology, yeah, if you want to be a doctor. I figured, well, chemistry, yeah, I really don't want to be a doctor because I knew I liked chemistry a lot more. And down the line, as time went on, I got in college in Nigeria. I actually went into college for biochemistry because, for whatever reason, I didn't select pharmacy as my top choice. I actually selected biochemistry because I thought, well, I like chemistry, I love chemistry, and I like biology too. So let me get a mix. And my first year in biochemistry in college, I was like, okay, you know what? I should have gone for pharmacy. And so then I left Nigeria and then I came to the United States. This was back in the 80s. And so there were some classes I had to take again when I got back in college here. Some of my courses I had taken in Nigeria didn't transfer, and I had to take some courses here again. And so having to take some of those courses again, I was like, okay, I am definitely sure that I really should just go pharmacy. And of course, one of those courses was organic chemistry in college. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to try to continue biochemistry here. I'm just going to go straight for pharmacy that I should have done in Nigeria. So I applied for pharmacy school and I got in. I got in pharmacy school. I was so excited. And of course, pharmacy school was extremely challenging. It was, I mean, I actually believe that pharmacy school is actually worse than medical school because we had to learn so much. I mean, oh my God, we have to learn about the whole body, and we also have to learn about all these drugs and how the drugs have action in the body. Medical school, they don't really have to learn about drugs. They just learn about the human body. So I actually felt like, oh my God, this is crazy. Pharmacy school was extremely challenging. And because I'm also let me say OCD about my grades, because I'm coming from Nigeria, and they have all these expectations. Everything always has to be an A. If it's a 90A, it's not even A enough. It has to be like 95, 99A. So because of my OCD in having earning all these top grades, I decided that I couldn't just be a regular pharmacy student. I had to excel. And so that was extremely challenging as well, because the class and courses were already challenging enough. And here I am trying to not only pass, but like totally excel. And when we got into pharmacy school, into the second year, we took courses, medicinal chemistry. There's several courses we took, but one of them was medicinal chemistry. And there were exams and tests where, I kid you not, I literally scored 97, 98, 99, even in some courses, in some exams for medicinal chemistry. That's how much I loved chemistry. And so, of course, through pharmacy school, I graduated with honors. I was one of the inducted into ROCI Association, which is the National Honor Society for Pharmacists. And that was just to further prove that, yeah, this is something I should have done before. And so that's really how my pharmacy journey began, just from my simple love of chemistry.
Wow, that's amazing. So, on your journey, you had this inner drive. Like, did you have any support from like your family since you didn't want to be a doctor, you didn't want to be an engineer? So, like, did you have like a mentor to guide you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So my older sister, my immediate older sister, she's also a registered pharmacist as well. However, my sister never set out to become a pharmacist. She had always wanted to be a medical doctor. And they had a program where all the students had to visit, um I believe it was some kind of, they had a program where they had to visit, like a mortuary or a morgue or something. And well, no, it wasn't a mortuary, it wasn't a morgue, it was a surgery. They had to be present during a surgery, a surgical event for a patient. And at the first sight of blood, she fainted, like
Oh,
she passed out. So they had to
wow.
take her out of the surgical room, the surgical theater, and they were like, you need to be able to, see blood and not pass out. And she was like, no. And the second part of that program they had for her, for all of them that were aspiring to be medical doctors, was they had to be able to fought through a cadaver. A cadaver is a dead human being. And she was like, heck no, I'm not doing that. I couldn't even withstand seeing, you know, someone go through a surgery that was already alive. And so she already knew at that point, okay, I don't think, I have what it takes to be a medical doctor. So she was like, okay, the next thing for her at that point was, okay, what other medical professions are there besides a medical doctor? And so that's how she ventured into becoming a pharmacist. And because she's older than myself, and she also went to the same college I went to in Nigeria, and then later on down the line, she spent a couple of years there and she came to the US. And when she came to the US, immediately she decided to apply for pharmacy school. She went through her prerequisites and all that. Because I always talked about the fact that I never wanted to be a doctor, I only wanted to be a pharmacist. She was like, okay, you know what? Let me even try all the stuff Dee always talks about. Let me apply. And she's very brilliant. My sister is extremely brilliant. And she applied. At the point that my sister applied for pharmacy school here, she had a 4.0 GPA.
Wow.
So she applied for a pharmacy school and she got in. So that's how she became a pharmacist. So by the time, and she's like 4 years older than me. So she started practicing pharmacy. She loved her career. And so that made me more resolute in my decision. I was like, yes, I mean, she's already doing it. She likes it. She loves it. I already knew that's what I wanted to do. I was like, yeah, I'm not even changing my mind. So that's when I left Nigeria and came here, and I had to start my college back again. I had to retake some courses that wouldn't transfer. My credits weren't transferring. I automatically knew that, yes, I'm definitely doing pharmacy. And of course, when I got accepted into pharmacy school and I started pharmacy, she was there to kind of, guide me like, oh my God, next semester, you're going to be taking these courses. They are going to kill you. Those courses are going to like kill you. But I was ready, because she would prep me. She would be like, these courses are going to kill you. When I got to some of the courses that she said were going to kill me, I had like 97, 98. I had like some ridiculously high scores in my test. And she was like, you crazy. What isn't this like shaking you the way she thought, it shook her? But of course, I wouldn't say that just because I was having high grades didn't mean that it didn't shake me. I mean, I literally had no time for anything else. But I also want to say that because she had gone through that, she had a lot of knowledge, she had a lot of experiential knowledge, she had some wisdom to share with me. She had better studying tips, like, do it this way, don't do it the way I did. I believe that that really helped me to excel even better than her own experiences that she had. So yes, I definitely had a lot of family support. I was also a young bride at that time when I was in
Oh,
pharmacy school. I
wow.
got married in the middle of pharmacy school, literally in the middle of pharmacy school. And so my husband also at that time was extremely supportive. So I think all of those things added together and really helped in my success.
Wow. So I can imagine like was your sister jealous?
Well, she just couldn't imagine that. She thought it was easy, like it looks like it's easy for her, but it wasn't so much as it being easy for me as the fact that one, I really love chemistry. I mean, I typically really do have a high affinity for chemistry. So all the pharmacy courses, all the courses that had anything to do specifically along that line from the first semester of pharmacy school, I mean, I was coming up with some crazy high grades. So, but when it came to pharmacology, pharmacognosy, pharmacokinetics, and all the parts of pharmacy that have to do with more physics, more biology, my grades weren't the best in that aspect. So, so she wasn't jealous per se, but she was like, well, you're finding it easier than I did.
So now that you're in, like, graduated, and when you got your first job, was it what you expected it to be?
Not exactly, because you always have this ideal expectation like, okay, as a pharmacist, especially as a young pharmacist, oh, I'm going to do this, it's going to be like this and this and this. One of the things we were taught extensively in pharmacy school was pharmaceutical counseling, how to counsel your patients that have just been prescribed, certain medications. We have to pretty much counsel every patient, especially if it's their first time getting that prescription. So we had all this, ideal things in our minds, how we were going to counsel the patients in an ideal world. But my first job was as a pharmacist was at Walgreens. And if if any of you are familiar with Walgreens, I mean, back in the day then, I'm talking about this is like in the 90s, um, Walgreens was extremely busy. I mean, if you talk about a busy pharmacy, I mean, we go through prescriptions like we're flipping burgers. Like
Mhm.
there's no time to, so, the patients would come, there'll be new prescriptions. And, my idea is, oh my God, let me sit and counsel these patients. But then I have like, my counter is full of like 20 prescriptions for patients waiting in front of me to have all the prescriptions ready. So I didn't even have the time of day to
Mm.
even counsel the patients. the way I had wanted to. Of course, we still have to counsel them, but at this point, I'm literally trying to say one or two top things I really have to say. I don't even have time to say anything other than the top two things this patient really must know. So I was like, oh my God. So I started to feel like, oh, there were so many things I wanted to tell that patient, this and that and that and that. But there absolutely was zero time for that. Because I mean, I would have like 10 patients waiting. I would have phone calls, other patients on the phone having questions. I would have the doctors on the line. Because sometimes when doctors have prescriptions for patients, we call them and we tell them, hey, there's some discrepancy here. We cannot fill these prescriptions. You need to clarify this. So some of those doctors will call the pharmacy back, trying to clarify the questions we had for them. So you have like three lines waiting for you. You have, patients at the checkout window also waiting to be counseled, and you have your counter full of prescriptions that still need to be done. So there literally was no fancy time for all my fancy, pharmaceutical counseling that we were taught in pharmacy school. So that made me feel like, oh, I wasn't like, this wasn't really what I wanted to do. It wasn't panning out, you know, to be, actually what I was thinking it would be. But, you live and you learn. And I had to learn how to factor what is the most important thing this patient needs to know. What is the most important thing I need to communicate to this patient about this new prescription? So that was all I could do at that time.
Hmm. And now it just seems like there's a parallel with you posting on social media and using that time to educate people. So, can you tell me more about your platform on social media?
Okay, so my platform on social media is basically to educate the general public about other modalities of healing. A lot of people oftentimes don't even know that there are, in fact, other modalities of healing. When people talk about health and healing and, diseases and things like that, all they think about is pharmaceuticals, the medical doctors and stuff, because that's all we've been taught. That's all we've been highly exposed to. And that's how really modern medicine, conventional medicine, Western medicine, if I can say that way, that's really what Western medicine wants us to believe there is. Like, this is the only modality of healing. But the reality is, it's really not the only modality of healing. There multiple modalities of healing. One of them just happens to be, pharmaceuticals, medical, the way the medical society is run, surgical interventions and stuff. Yeah, that's just one aspect of the modality of healing. There are multiple modalities of healing. Natural herbs, natural therapies is another viable modality of healing. Another modality of healing is something like sleep, something like rest, something like meditation, something like massage, something like the spa, something like yoga, something like acupuncture, something like chiropractor. There are multiple modalities of healing, sun therapy, so many modalities of healing. So one of my aim was to educate the public that, there are so many other modalities of healing. The the specific one I wanted to highlight specifically was natural herbs, natural therapy. Some people call it herbalism. So that was the one I was actually wanting to highlight the most. And the reason being that, especially after the pandemic, there became an increase in the desires of people wanting more knowledge about using natural herbs, because as we all know it, during the pandemic, that was what everyone had to resort to doing. There was nothing in sight, so everyone was just trying their best to, I guess, survive and not die from COVID, the virus. So I decided, especially since the pandemic, there's been an interest, a rise in people adopting the use of natural herbs. And so, with that increase in interest, with that increase in use, there became a lot of information online. And along with the rise of information, also came a lot of misinformation online. And so that was really what prompted me to say, okay, you know what? I really need to be out there. There's a lot of information that are good. At the same time, there's a whole bunch of misinformation out there as well. And I was like, I really need to be out there offering a lot of knowledge, offering a lot of valuable education out there so people could become more informed, better informed, well informed, so that they could begin to make better choices. Okay, so not generally speaking, when people use natural herbs and natural therapy correctly, do it the way they're supposed to, follow the guidelines, they should not expect side effects. Remember that natural herbs are natural. They're natural. They're not man-made. God made all these herbs, and God also made our human bodies. So all these natural herbs are native to our bodies, so to speak. They're very natural. So they sync very well with the human bodies. So when used correctly, in the right proportions, in the right doses, in the right therapeutic ways, people should not experience side effects. Now, pharmaceuticals are chemicals. They're man-made. They're drugs. That's why you can't expect to have side effects. Pharmaceuticals are generally designed to have one indication, meaning that that drug was only designed to do one thing. However, along with that one indication also comes at least about a minimum of 10 possible side effects. The reason for that is because these are drugs, they're chemicals, they're not native to the human body. So they don't work in sync with the human body. And that's how you have side effects. When herbs are used correctly, you shouldn't experience side effects. People experience side effects with herbs for two reasons. One, a lot of people overdo herbs thinking that, oh, they're natural. So someone tells, I tell someone, take 1 teaspoon of these herbs and put it in a cup of water. And that person's going to think, well, this stuff is natural. She told me to take 1 teaspoon. Let me double it up so I can get it to be stronger. Thinking, oh, it's natural. It's not a drug. And then they take double, forgetting that even though these are natural things, when we use them a certain way, they do exert therapeutic actions in the body. So those are times where people experience side effects because they tend to overdo the use of natural herbs. But when used correctly, you shouldn't expect to have side effects. Natural herbs, because they're so native to the body, they go in the body and they only deliver what the body needs. They don't do anything outside of what your body requires. So you have situations where I can take the exact thing and you're going to take the exact same herb and it's going to have two different physiological actions in our bodies. It's going to go in my body, and because it's natural, it's going to do that which my body needs. The exact same herb, you're going to take it, it's going to go in your body, and it's going to do exactly what your body requires. It's going to attend to the deficiencies that you have, and it's going to attend to the deficiencies that I have. And because we're two different people, it tends to have slightly different effects between myself and yourself. Nonetheless, neither one of us should experience side effects. So when natural herbs are used correctly, you shouldn't expect to be experiencing the side effect that you typically get when you use pharmaceutical drugs. Um, I have I have a lot of testimonials, and every day I keep getting a newer one. I have clients that come to me, and I have health plans that they enroll for. My health plans typically last 3 months. We go through several things during that 3 month time frame. And some of my clients, before we even get through the end of 1 month, they are already experiencing results. They are already physically seeing the benefits of the treatments I'm taking them through. People report different things. For example, I have a client who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer that had metastasized to different organs in her body. It literally had spread to like about 5 different organs in her body. At the time she came to me, she was wheelchair bound, didn't have any energy to even walk by herself and move around. And within the first day, I kid you not, within the first day, just from some of the juicing regimen I had her on, her daughter called me and her daughter said, okay, let me tell you something. Today is only day 1, and my mother has only had 1 glass of this juice, literally 8 ounces of the juice. And that day, her daughter called me. She was like, I don't know, she was actually the one that juiced up the stuff for her mother. I told her all the ingredients to buy. She juiced it up and all that. And she gave her mother. And she told me that about 2 hours after her mother had the drink, her mother was actually able to sit up from the bed. This is a lady that every 3 weeks she goes for her chemotherapy infusions, and it takes her like about 8 days to even be able to sit up. She throws up, really bad bouts of nausea and vomiting the first entire week after going through chemo infusions. And so when they started with me, after going through just 1 glass of juice, she was telling me my mother was actually able to sit up in bed by herself without being propped up. And by the end of that day, she was able to actually get out of the bed and go to the bathroom by herself, which they thought was incredible considering the fact that every time she goes for chemo, that entire first week after chemo, she is totally bedbound. I mean, she gets so sick that she can't even eat anything because she's constantly throwing up. Fast forward a month of therapy with this lady, um, she was able to eat. She's now able to eat. She's able to walk around the house. Fast forward 3 weeks. Well, no, it was longer than 3 weeks. Fast forward into like the second month. By the second month, she was no longer using her wheelchair. And up till today, she still doesn't use that wheelchair. And not only that, because see, we're not going to judge results by how she feels, right? So I don't base the results I'm getting for those people based on how they feel. I also look at the lab results. I also look at the scans. So every 3 months, the patients do get the scan. We look at the MRI scan, PET scans. 3 months after, she's been my client, we compare her scans, from December to her scans in March. Her scans in March. Keep in mind that after she started with me, she decided to stop chemotherapy because she was like, she could no longer keep up with the side effects of chemotherapy. And she literally decided to stop chemotherapy. So she stopped chemotherapy about a month after she started with me. And so for the remaining 2 months, she wasn't on any chemotherapy, and she's still not on chemotherapy right now. So we looked at the results in March and we compared every single cancer, because at this point she had metastases pretty much all over her lungs. She had lumps on her liver and 2 lumps on her kidney, and it was gone through all her lymph system. She had a bunch of lymph nodes that the cancer had penetrated. Fast forward 3 months later, we look at the scans because, like I said, we're not only going to base our results on, oh, she feels good, she can eat, she can walk around. No, we're not going to base it on that. We're going to base it on the same results she got when they say, hey, this is the type of cancer she had. 3 months later, she takes a scan. We compare every single, and I mean every single spot that she had the nodules of cancer in, they were completely stabilized, every single one. The main cancer in the stomach, because she had gastrointestinal cancer, which was really, really bad. The whole stomach wall was completely healed, like completely, because they take a scan and they give results. And so many other like results she had. But it was very easy because we're literally comparing the scan from March to the scan in December. She did another scan last week, and the scans just keep getting better. Now, let's talk about another patient. I had another patient that called me, and she had a tumor on the kidney. She did ultrasound, and they also did an MRI to confirm that it wasn't just a cyst, it was actually a tumor. And they wanted to cut it off and biopsy it. And she said, no. So I advised in that case to let's start therapy first, for at least about a couple of months. Let's see how it progresses. And then, if need be, they can biopsy to test it, or she can decide to actually remove it. Well, after 2 months, I wanted her to go back and do testing. She was extremely scared. And she said, no, I don't want to do a biopsy. I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to talk to them. I want to continue your therapy for an additional 2 months. Well, this lady continued therapy with me for an additional 4 months. Now we're talking about 6 months here. I really ideally wanted her to go back at the end of 2 months to get it, tested again, because I didn't want to wait too long before she did another test. But she was so scared, and she just didn't want to do that. So she did another 2 months with me, and then another 2 months. And at the end of 6 months, I just wasn't feeling comfortable. I was like, no, you do need to get tested. And then so she went to get tested, because at this time the doctor really now wanted to, have a meeting with her. And the doctor is like, I don't want this cancer to get out of hand. It's still small. We can still, manage it. So they called her in. They did a scan, nothing. Then lots of other results. I mean, I could go on and on. The first thing people need to do to sign up with me, go on my website, www.yourorganicpharmacist.com. Book a consultation. During the consultation, I go over several things. We have a lengthy discussion to review, what's really going on. And I go through the options of my plans with them, and they decide which option they want to sign up for. Once they've decided the option they want to sign up for, then I request their lab, the lab work scans, so I can determine how best to treat them. So that's how they sign up with me. It's just basically going to my website, www.yourorganicpharmacist.com, and schedule a consultation, and we take it from there. Well, if I had a crystal ball, what I think the progression is going to be versus the reality of what is actually going to be probably are going to be two different things, right? But let's say I had a crystal ball, one of the things I would really love to see is a society, one, where more people are beginning to take control of their own health, where more people are taking charge of their own health decisions. That would be one. Two, I would really want an ideal world where, or society where we're literally bridging conventional with holistic health. I don't want a society where we're considering all these other viable options and modalities of healing as alternatives. When it comes to healing, there shouldn't be this is an alternative. This is an option. This is the other alternative. And sometimes they use words like quack medicine, pseudoscience. They call it what? Snake oil, something, you know, all kinds of, you know, derogatory names for these, alternative therapies. In an ideal world, it shouldn't even be alternative. Why should it be alternative? Why shouldn't it be considered exactly along all the other ones? And then let the patient or even let the health professional determine that, okay, let's start with this one. Let's put everything on the same plane level field. Why do we have one so elevated and then everything else is non-existent? So in an ideal world, I really would want a society where we're bridging conventional with holistic, because the truth be told, it's time. It's really that time. Because whether we want to believe it or not, the reality is it comes with a lot of limitations. There are lots of limitations to conventional medicine, to modern medicine. There are lots of limitations, lots of inadequacies. It doesn't solve everything. If it did, why are we still here? Let's think about it. Let's think about healthcare in the US. So healthcare in the US alone accounts for 33% of the GDP. That's 33% of the economy, the healthcare. It's a freaking third of the economy. So let's think about this also. The healthcare in America as a nation spends the most in healthcare. We are the number one spender when it comes to healthcare. It's the most expensive country in the world when it comes to healthcare. Also, when it comes to healthcare, America has the best diagnostic tools, right? I mean, hands down, the best. We can't even argue that. We have the best diagnostic tools. America has the most expensive healthcare in the world. But when it comes to outcomes of health, when it comes to results, why are we ranking in the 30s? Why do we have 29 to, well, I think we rank 33. Why are we ranking number 33? We spend the most in the healthcare in the world. We have the best healthcare system, the best diagnostic tools. When it comes to health outcomes, why are we ranking in the 30s? Why do we have countries like Japan, Spain, Switzerland, Singapore? Why do we have all these Asian countries and all these other countries, 20 something, 30 something countries on top of America? What part of ranking in the third? It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up at all. And I don't even want to go into details of what are all these countries doing to where they're having fantastic health outcomes. What are they doing? What are we not doing? We spend the most. It takes up a third of our economy. We have the best diagnostic tools. Why are we having crappy results like this? Something isn't adding up here. And so to that I say it has come to time where, we as individuals, as citizens, people really need to begin to be, they really need to begin to take charge of their own health. They really need to begin to take matters into their own hands, become responsible and the driver of their own health. And the first thing we need to do is we need to begin to shout and scream at the top of our lungs, prevention, prevention, prevention. Hey, like they say, we all know it. Prevention is better than cure. There's a proverb that says an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Why aren't we focusing on prevention. Why aren't we talking about prevention? And when we're talking about prevention, why are we stopping about, oh, go get your mammograms every year, go get your colonoscopy every year? If you get your mammogram every year, that's part of prevention. I get it because it helps you, spot something. But then we have to take it deeper than that. Okay, so we get mammograms every year. Okay, so what if you do spot something? So we already know that, okay, that's not the totality of prevention. Getting colonoscopies, getting scans, mammograms, and all these diagnostic tests, that's not the totality of prevention. The beginning and the totality of prevention is making sure that we are healthier on a daily basis and beginning to do things that make us healthy and keep us from being sick. Things to keep us from getting cancer, things to keep us from getting diabetes, things to keep us from having all these so-called lifestyle diseases like high blood pressure and so many other diseases that literally they are lifestyle diseases, really. So now we really need to begin to pound on prevention, prevention, prevention. And when we begin to talk about prevention, one thing stands out very clear. That is, we cannot prevent diseases with pharmaceuticals. You absolutely cannot boost your immune system with pharmaceutical drugs. You can only boost your immune system by the foods you consume. We saw this during the pandemic. As a matter of fact, there wasn't any drug for anyone to use. And the main deciding factor during the pandemic to decide whether someone was more likely to live or pass from COVID was how strong their immune system was. And unfortunately, you absolutely cannot boost your immune system with medications. You can only do that with herbs and with the foods that we consume. And also, we all know that a healthy population doesn't necessarily make for, good business. Healthcare is a business after all. And healthy patients don't necessarily, you know, it doesn't make for good business when it comes to when it comes to healthcare. The sicker the patients are, the better for the healthcare system. So I'm not shocked or surprised why we're not pushing for prevention. Because when we begin to push for prevention, then we need to begin to, that demand, we need to begin to demand that, the foods are better, the foods that we're being, offered as a society, they need to begin to offer us better foods, healthier foods, real, truly organic foods, no pesticides, no herbicides, no spray, no chemicals of any sort, So those are the only ways we can boost our immune system. Those are the only ways we truly can prevent, the onslaught of diseases. Those are the ways we can prevent from, getting chronic illnesses and diseases. So those are the things that I would, if I had a crystal ball, those are the things I would be wanting to happen. A society where people are not relegating the state of their health to medical professionals. They're not putting the doctor in the driver's seat and they're sitting in the back seat or even the trunk sometimes, not knowing, not knowing where they're being driven. And the doctor is just saying this, do this, do this, do this. And they feel like they don't even have a say. But at the same time, they're experiencing all these adverse effects from the therapies and the treatments. And sometimes it just gets worse and worse. So I'm really looking for a society where people stop putting the complete state of their health and their health outcomes at the hands of medical professionals. They need to begin to take the driver's seat themselves, begin to do a lot of research, look into all these things. People often say, oh, we don't have enough information on natural herbs. They haven't been studied. They're not standardized. They have all kinds of excuses when it comes to natural herbs, but that's not true. There are tons and tons and tons of studies that's been done on all these natural herbs. Lots of studies done in the USA and outside of the USA. Um, most colleges have what we consider to be, School of Botanical Studies, where they actually study these plants to see what properties these plants have. Not only that, these plants have been studied in the labs, and not only that, these plants have also been studied in human beings. So there are actually lots of studies in journals of phytomedicine, phytomedica, journals of botanical studies, lots of journals hold all these studies. So it's not that they haven't been studied or the studies aren't there. They're there. So people need to begin to step outside of the box, begin to unlearn some things and relearn the new things, and begin to open their mind to the fact that there were civilizations before now. Human beings existed before now. By no means we are the first generations of human beings that lived on this planet. No, we're not. What were other people doing? Traditional Chinese medicine is probably almost 1,000 years old. Ayurveda, the people in the East India, they call it Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurveda. Extremely old with centuries of documented information. So we're not talking about we're doing pseudoscience or quackery, or we don't know what we're doing, we don't know the doses. No, 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 no. As a matter of fact, if we're to dial it back, pharmaceutical medications themselves started on this same premise. Majority of medications actually were nothing but plants made into drugs. So we're past the point where anyone's going to say, well, they don't have therapeutic actions in the body, or it's not going to work and all that. We're past that, because the first line of several drugs were nothing but plants. And when it comes to things like chemotherapy, the first line of chemotherapy drugs, strictly plants: paclitaxel, vincristine, vinblastine, mentioned like 10 drugs, completely coming from plants. Vincristine is a plant coming from the yew plant, paclitaxel, taxol, so many plants. They studied them. They saw that, wow, these are the actions. They added a few chemical compounds to them. Voila, we have a chemo drug, nothing but complete plants. So, and the same thing still remains. And of course, one of the reasons why that may not continue to happen is when they study plants and they study the plant in its totality, they cannot patent that plant. It's a naturally occurring plant. You cannot hold a patent on something that's naturally occurring. So, and when companies find out that, okay, well, they already know they cannot patent it, then what's the next thing they're going to do? They're going to stop wasting, like, we don't want to waste our money, because at the end of the day, regardless of how fantastic that plant was on human beings and the results they're getting, they don't care. They cannot hold a patent. So they're like, we're not going to put our money in that, because at the end of the day, I cannot make it into a drug. I cannot sell it. I cannot profit. So I don't care if it does this or that. I don't care. So because of that is why they are not going to continue to study plants that could potentially be extremely life-saving. We all know that it's financial interest. So that's why I know that some of my thoughts and ideal hopes in my crystal ball may not necessarily pan out in real life. The pharmaceutical, we call them big pharma for a reason. It's, I mean, they are so massive now. It's like, who can come against them? So, and they're not going to stop whatever they're doing to continue making money. They're not going to go back into all these herbs where you don't even have to buy herbs sometimes because they literally grow. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. God just made them to where, we call them weeds sometimes. They grow by themselves. Dandelions, you don't even have to plant dandelion. It freaking comes out of the earth by itself. And we call all these beneficial herbs sometimes, we call them weed. We call them pervasive weed, like, oh, these are very pervasive plants. We cut them off sometimes. So pharmaceuticals are not going to like gyrate and, move over into, you know, a section where it's clearly not going to be profitable at all. So, but those are the things I would want if I had a crystal ball. I would want a situation where people begin to take control and take charge of their own health, take full responsibility. It's, an environment where we're literally pairing and bridging conventional, medicine with holistic health. And of course, absolutely a society that, screams and yells prevention. We don't need to wait for people to get sick and treat them. How about don't even get sick at all? Okay, so I can easily be reached on all my social media platforms. I go by Organic Pharmacist on YouTube. My Instagram is the same thing, at Organic Pharmacist. And my TikTok page is also the same thing, at Organic Pharmacist. Of course, we don't know what the fate of TikTok is going to be, but for as long as we have it, it's still the same. I'm also on Facebook because I do Facebook Live sometimes. My name on Facebook is just my name, Dee Oye. And of course, you also have my website, yourorganicpharmacist.com. I can be reached at any of these platforms. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.